So for this exercise, I have the, kind of the kit that we talked about for the marking. We've got a speed square, a framing square, tape measure, couple of pencils, combo square, and then we're going to introduce this ryobi crosscut saw. This is a saw that cuts on the pull cut, and if you look at it, it has the teeth that are close together. The teeth that are close together right here, those are the crosscut teeth, and these other teeth are the rip saw teeth. And what I mean by crosscut, when I cut in this direction across the timber, that's cross-cutting. When I cut with the grain, like on the end of the timber, when we're doing a tenon cheek, that would be rip cut. If you need this temple saw, you can get that on our Amazon storefront. You can also buy a similar saw from one of the box stores, and it'll work just fine for what we're trying to do here. First thing we do is lay out our timber. We never use the end of our timber because it may be square, it may not be square, has maybe some wear, some weathering, so we're always going to cut that off. I'll show you a couple of different ways that we can do the layout. The first one's with the speed square, and I'm just going to pick a measurement, and what we'll do is we're going to make this 12 inches, and this is going to be the first piece that we need in our next exercise. So I'm going to come down here to the 10, and I'm going to pick an arbitrary point for my 0 that's maybe an inch or two from the end, and on my 10 I'm going to put my crow's foot. So if I want 12 inches, I have to go to 22, look straight down, and put my crow's foot. Now I have two crow's foots right at the point that are 12 inches apart. And I'm going to cut these off square, and then we're going to utilize this piece for generating our tenon in the exercise when we build our first joint. So one way of doing it is I can use a speed square, and I'm going to come right to my point, and I'm just going to make my line. So I'm going to make a line all the way across. Now when doing the layout, I want to do this side first, which is the top, then one side, then the other, because that's going to minimize the wraparound error that I have. So I'm going to line my speed square up with my line. I'm just going to drop my line all the way down. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So what that does is that gives me a line that's on 3 sides. I got top, this side, or top, this side, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to roll my timber over, line up my speed square, and when I line it up here, it should line up on the other side, and I'll bring that line all the way across. Now we are utilizing, this is a 4x4, which is actually 3.5 by 3.5 from the box store. It's pressure treated because we're going to put it in, or it's screen treated because we're going to put it in the ground as a mailbox or sign holder. And these sides are plain square. That's why they start out at 4x4 and they become 3.5 by 3.5 when we do the planing, so that everything will square up nicely. When we get into timber framing layout, that's not necessarily the case. Now on this other end, I could use the framing square like we did, in our first exercise. I could line up here right with the edge and kind of make that line. You find that a combo square is kind of nice for this. You can set it so it goes all the way across your timber. I will line it up with my mark, and then I'm just simply going to make my mark all the way across, do one side, do the other side, and then rotate it over, and it should line up, and I'm just going to do the bottom. So now I've got marks on my timber that goes all the way around, and I expect this to be 12 inches between there, but before I cut it, I'm going to go ahead and check it. So to check it, I'm going to put my 10 on my line. I'm going to go right there and make sure that right down the center of that line, I got 10 to 22, which means that this piece is in fact 12 inches. So now we're going to do the cutting with the ryobi saw, and I mentioned that it has crosscut teeth and rip teeth. And if you look here, the smaller impulsed hardened teeth, being black ones, are the crosscut, and then the larger teeth are the rip ones. A reminder, crosscut is this way, and rip is when you're cutting with the grain. So crosscut is across the grain, rip is with the grain. We're going to go ahead and cut this. We're going to use the crosscut side. I'm going to put it right on the line. To get these saws started, what I'm going to do is lightly push forward and pull back. Push, pull, push, pull. Not putting a lot of pressure on it, just a little bit. I think I'm going to take a break here and go get a clamp. So I just added a clamp so it doesn't move around so much. It makes it a little bit easier. So I put back in my groove, and what I'm going to do is come right across on my line. I want to get that first line across the top started. So now I have a nice curve all the way across the top. The next step, and it might be easier to rotate the timber to do it. I'll get rid of my clamp. Is I want to line up in this curve that I just cut, but I want to get, oh, wrong teeth. I want to get this line to come all the way across. And I'm going to give it a little, move it down maybe 1/8 or 1/4 inch. So now I got a line on the top, and I got a line right around the side. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And what this is doing is this just gives me a spot where my saw will go. So I'm just creating a guide. Now as I'm cutting, what I want to be doing is I want to be looking at the curve as I'm cutting. I don't want to cut blindly, because if it comes out of the curve, it may or may not, it may not be square. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of look over, and I'm simply letting the saw do the work, and I'm going right, I'm watching this line here, and I'm watching that line down there. So I'm watching both lines and trying to use the full width of the saw, following the curve down. And as you can see, okay, so now I'm right down to the bottom. So I have a pretty good curve all the way down this side. And I can come over this side and do the same thing. I want to watch what I'm doing and just make sure I stay in my curve up here, and I'm staying in the curve down here. Let the saw do the work. Okay, so I got a pretty good curve on both sides. If you look inside here, it probably looks something like this. And I'm still going to watch what I'm doing, but I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off. So I'm letting the saw do the work. I'm occasionally checking over here, making sure I'm still in the curve. Let the saw do its thing. Oh, it would bound up a little bit. So kind of the trick is light touch. These temple saws are awesome. They work really, really well. So I like them a lot. And I'm continuing to check because I don't want to be outside that curve. And I just cut that off. So it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to do that. It's pretty easy to do, but the thing I want to check when I have it cut off, I want to validate that I'm very square in this direction, and I'm very square in that direction. So that's going to give me assurance that this here is square. If this was a post, it would sit nicely on my footings. I can check square with a combo square, kind of the same thing. But if you are careful with your layout and you're careful with your saw and you run those curves all the way around, this is going to be a square cut. Yeah, once we've done that, that first cut, go ahead and cut off the other end and give yourself some practice. And we just want to make sure that we hang on to that 12-inch chunk because we're going to be putting a tenon in that for our first joint. The way we're going to ensure we're successful is we want to make sure we're square in this direction and we're square in this direction. And if for some reason it's soft square a little bit, we could clean up the end of this timber with a chisel or a sander or something like that, and that would take care of it. Yeah, so that is kind of how you operate that ryobi pull saw. And our next step is going to be, we're going to make our first joint. We're going to cut a tenon, we're going to cut a mortise, and we're going to peg it together. So make sure you hang on to that 12-inch chunk because we're going to utilize that in the next lesson.